Hello, you're watching Eastern Europe Review, the program that is mainly about Belarus, Ukraine and Russia. This is the common project of BELSAT TV and TVP World. My name is Dmitry Mitskevich, and let's take a look at today's headlines. During his European tour to ensure military support for Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky has also met with the Belarusian democratic leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya.
Of course, I congratulated him. We exchanged a few words, but it wasn't a full-fledged meeting.
Russia is facing a national catastrophe. The area of forest fires is record-breaking.
This spring season is basically abnormal for us. Spring fires are fast. It's easy to extinguish them.
A Belarusian manufacturer of combat drones has avoided EU sanctions with the help of a Lithuanian company.
We need to examine and deliberate whether this product could have a dual use.
Volodymyr Zelensky has finally met with the Belarusian democratic leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. The authorities in Kyiv avoided the meeting both before the start of the full-scale war and after the Russian invasion. But during the working visits of the Ukrainian president in Europe, the rhetoric regarding Belarus changed. How could successful negotiations with the West, foreshadowing the counteroffensive, influence the positive attitude of Ukraine towards the democratic forces of Belarus?
It was a short but symbolic handshake. Volodymyr Zelensky has finally met with Belarusian democratic leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. The meeting took place in Aachen, Germany, where the Ukrainian president received the Charlemagne Award. Up to that point, despite several attempts to establish contact made by the office of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the Ukrainian authorities had avoided communicating with the Belarusian democratic forces. Finally, the politicians greeted each other when Svetlana Tikhanovskaya was introduced to Zelensky as last year's Charlemagne Award laureate. Of course, I congratulated him. We exchanged a few words, but it wasn't a full-fledged meeting. I would like our first official meeting to be bilateral, not on the go, and I see that the Ukrainian side is becoming more open to communication. The day before, Zelensky said on Italian TV that 70% of the population of Belarus is against Russia and the war, and despite the information policy of the authorities, Belarusians are fighting. These words are different from the previous rhetoric of Kiev, which ignored Tikhanovskaya's office in order not to provoke the co-aggressor in the war, Lukashenko. This change could be influenced by the successful negotiations with the West, which greatly strengthened Ukraine's position before the counter-offensive.
I've said it many times and I'll say it again today. We will support you as long as necessary.
It was indeed a successful tour of working visits of Volodymyr Zelensky. It showed that some countries have become more decisive in their support to Ukraine, and European partners as a whole seem to have come to a strategic decision to work together to defeat Russia.
Since the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, Ukraine could count on support, political, military and economic, primarily from the USA, Great Britain, Poland, the Baltic countries and a group of other countries. But there were always doubts about the certainty of support from Berlin and Paris. It seems to me that this trip confirms the unity of the West in supporting Ukraine.
During Volodymyr Zelensky's visit, it was announced that Germany is preparing the largest package of military aid to Ukraine, worth almost 2,700 million euros. In addition, Paris promised to prepare and equip several battalions of the Ukrainian armed forces with dozens of units of armored vehicles, as well as to take part in strengthening the air defense of Ukraine. Moreover, Emmanuel Macron hinted at the transfer of long-range missiles to Ukraine.
Europe was defined for a long time, but as I understand it, partner countries from the European Union reassessed their values in relation to the war. If in the first months Europe was very sceptical about the military support of Ukraine, about the supply of weapons, today Germany already comes in second place among the countries that support Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the Netherlands and Great Britain are creating an international coalition to provide Ukraine with F-16 fighters, as well as to train pilots. It seems that the West is not just supporting a counter-offensive, but is already making decisions according to a victory plan. The German arms maker Rheinmetall is ready to build a factory for the production of tanks in Ukraine, which requires an investment of 200 million euros. It means Europe believes that the money of big business will be safe there.
Ready to fight.
The counter-offensive has a great chance of success, which makes it less likely that the Belarusian dictator will enter the war. Therefore, we can expect more meetings between Zelensky and Tsikhanouskaya.
Large-scale wildfires in Russia, huge territories of the Urals, Siberia and the Far East are on fire. The flames have destroyed several villages, dozens of people have died, hundreds have been injured. There is a threat that the situation may turn into a national catastrophe. Regional government officials admit that they have no resources to stop the disaster. At the same time, the Kremlin prefers not to notice what is happening.
I had a big house, 11 rooms, and there was a boiler room here, outside, with gas stoves and gas pipes. There was a well with water in my house.
Irina Kondina is walking around the completely burned down old village of Yulduz. It is in the Kurgan region, which is between the Urals and Siberia. During the night, a forest fire spread to the houses and completely destroyed 280 buildings. 7 people have died. Only the school and the mosque have survived. Locals are trying to find anything else that has survived, but all the property has been destroyed.
The authorities are telling us that we'll get compensation, but I do not know how much money we need to build everything from scratch here. Tomorrow the authorities will come and we will decide.
Fire victims have been accommodated in neighbouring villages. The local authorities said that the people who had lost their homes would receive only about $660 compensation from the budget. Families of the dead people would receive over $13,000. At the same time, many people have lost everything. Large-scale fires have covered not just the Kurgan region. Forests are burning all over the country. Fire is spreading in more than 20 regions. The total area of the fires is around 60,000 hectares. This is just the official data. However, Greenpeace argues that the real figures are 10 times higher and that the Russian authorities underestimate the statistics. The organization claims that the fires have spread over an area of more than 5 million hectares, which is comparable to the area of Slovakia or Denmark. The Urals, Siberia and the Far East are on fire. Entire villages are being destroyed by flames. Dozens of people have died. Hundreds have been injured. The authorities are blaming people themselves. In most cases, fires are still caused by arson, the human factor. In some places it is careless handling of fire, making bonfires. People have barbecues or burn dry grass on their plots of land. But residents of the regions are outraged by such accusations. They believe that there are arsonists. They are even looking for a Ukrainian trail. The authorities have introduced a state of emergency in the regions. In fact, they admit that firefighters don't have enough equipment, money or people to fight such large-scale fires. There are not enough people. No one comes to work because the authorities don't pay. There are only volunteers. Everyone works with total enthusiasm, probably out of love for their profession. Rescue services don't have enough specialists, even though there are now thousands of volunteers all over the country helping them. But they don't know how to fight fires inside the forest. That's where the airborne paratroopers work. They put out peat fires that cannot be seen from the ground. Peat can smoulder at depth, and the fire can spread unnoticed for dozens of meters, only to break out later. This spring season is basically abnormal for us. Spring fires are fast. It's easy to extinguish them, but this year they have become steady. Peat is burning. It's something that isn't immediately visible, but something that will cause a lot of damage. According to the Federal Forestry Agency's calculations, damage caused by forest fires is estimated at more than $266 million per year. At the same time, funding for forest services, which is supposed to prevent the large-scale spread of fire, is being cut. Independent environmentalists say that what is happening in Russia is a national disaster. Meanwhile, the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin are keeping quiet. The Tyumen region is one of the regions which has been hit by the forest fires the hardest. But at the meeting with the governor, the Russian president was interested only in how the participants in the war against Ukraine were being supported by the region. There was no mention about the fires at the meeting.
Another case of Belarus avoiding EU sanctions. A Lithuanian glider manufacturer has signed a contract with a Belarusian manufacturer of combat drones and gun turrets. It seems legitimate as the Belarusian company was covered by an American Dubai one. In the beginning, the drone contract was worth 600,000 euros. Lithuanian journalists discovered an illicit business of their compatriots. We decided to investigate it further.
While Lithuanian citizens were launching a crowdfunding campaign to purchase a drone for Ukraine, some business people were constructing wings for drones that could be used against Ukrainians. The State Security Department of Lithuania is analyzing information that local glider manufacturer, Sportin Avialesookhrana from Patinai in the west of the country, has cooperated with a Belarusian company, a producer of dual-purpose unmanned aerial vehicles. UAVOS, which has offices in the UAE and the USA, served as a cover for a Belarusian company called Kvant Intelligence Systems.
The person started to communicate with us in Russian. He had a Russian name. He said that he was the owner of UAVOS and that he lived in Minsk. He did not even hide it. That immediately raised a red flag for us.
However, it seems that the response was not so immediate. Last year, Sigitas Besagirskas signed a contract worth 600,000 euros with UAVOS. He received an advance and started producing wings for cargo drones. The Lithuanian company had committed itself to train Belarusian engineers how to set up mass production of wings. But the bank suspended payments after suspicions had arisen.
We need to examine and deliberate whether this product could have a dual use, because basically the wings and the platform that you can mount the drone on are clearly a dual-use product.
UAVOS has offices in the US, Canada, Dubai, and Spain, as well as in Minsk at 26 Victor's Avenue, and it works with the Belarusian State Academy of Aviation and military contractors from Abu Dhabi. UAVOS makes turret manipulators, capable of shooting down drones, unmanned helicopters for cargo or capturing small drones, unmanned cargo aircraft, and even stratospheric gliders. But the videos of UAVOS and Kvant Intelligence Systems feature the exact same engineers, the same people.
Kvant IS makes drones for security, the oil and gas industry, meteorology, and for the transportation of goods to hard-to-reach areas.
This is the interview which the Belarusian news portal onliner.by conducted with Serhiy Titsyk. Titsyk does not say that his company manufactures combat systems, but there is information about state contractors from Kvant Intelligence Job Systems on job boards. And this is a person who looks like Serhiy Titsyk, who, in 2012, at Minsk Civil Aviation Plant number 407, together with its chief technical officer, Oleg Manchenko, and CEO Yevgeny Vaitsekovich, are demonstrating a new medium-range drone, STERH-BM. The drone was manufactured for the Belarusian Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Emergency Situations, and the KGB. Kvant Intelligence Systems has developed an automation system for STERH-BM.
In my experience, I have come across dozens of cases of various contacts with Russian and Belarusian companies in the strategic sector which are outside of our legal framework and are unacceptable to us. And few Lithuanian companies really knew the whole picture. The viewpoint that we did not know anything or we are not obliged to check anything is deceptive.
Lithuanian businessman Sigitas Besagirskas only needed to Google Kvant Intelligence Systems systems, as well as the name of his business partner. This would have been enough to find a number of Ukrainian and Belarusian media reports regarding Minsk-based Fund intelligence systems' alleged assistance in assembling Iranian drones, which are widely used in Russian airstrikes on Ukraine.
That's all for today. The Eastern Europe review will be back next Sunday. Please stay with TVP World and stand with Ukraine.